Welcome to the BDGG guide for Mythic Hunstman Altimor. This is the second fight in Mythic Castle Nathria and is actually pretty different to his heroic counterpart. While most abilities remain very similar, the strategy changes quite a bit from heroic when dealing with Sinseekers, as the Gargons add permanent additional mechanics to Sinseeker. Margor increases its damage to 80k, but it splits amongst all players hit, so you'll want players standing in the line to split the damage. Separately, Margor leaves a 6-second bleed dot on players by his Vicious Lunge ability. Bargast, arguably the most difficult, causes each player hit to spawn a Pierce Soul with HP relative to theirs after the hit. This soul drifts slowly towards the boss and must be healed to full before reaching the boss. If it reaches Hunstman Altimor, it's a wipe. Lastly, Hecutus causes players hit by Sinseeker to splash 8k nature damage to players in a 5-yard radius. For raid composition on this fight, we actually recommend 5 healing for your first kill. You can 4 heal this boss, but the most difficult portion of the fight is made more simple by just bringing an extra healer. Other than that, the 2 tank and 13 DPS is very flexible, but 1 Death Knight can make the fight a little easier. For the positioning on this fight, we recommend tanking Hunstman where he spawns, with tanks moving the boss as necessary to buy time for healers to heal Pierce Souls, but returning to the position between mechanics. There are marks in this fight that you can drop that will make handling certain mechanics a little easier. 1 in the front left corner, 1 in the front right corner, and 3 spaced out marks in the center of the room. The fight starts with Margor, so you'll want to assign groups of people to soak Sinseekers. A few range should consistently help split the Vicious Lunge, but there are no specific positionings for this ability, as long as it's soaked by 3 to 5 players. For Sinseeker, we dropped 3 markers on the ground and ranged, and had each of the Sinseeker targets claim a mark, and then the associated group soak the line. You can see our assignments in the bottom left corner of this footage. The range should have a loose spread around this portion of the room, with melee on the sides of the boss to reduce damage done by spread shot. Jagged Claws is the tank mechanic for Margor, and tanks should swap after 2 stacks of the debuff. It has a hard-hitting application followed by a moderate dot that lasts 30 seconds. Bargast is next, and should be tanked away from the boss, as he casts Rip Soul on the tank, spawning a Ripped Soul to slowly move towards the boss. Again, healers must heal this Ripped Soul to full before it reaches the boss, or it will result in a wipe. Bargast then casts Shades of Bargast, which spawns 2 adds that need to be immediately crowd controlled where they spawn. At this point, the tank should move Bargast across the room to the other corner, and his set of mechanics repeat. The Shades have a lot of HP, but gain a stacking debuff called Destabilize while crowd controlled, which makes them take 100% increased damage. After the tank's second Rip Soul, a Death Knight should Death Grip one of the Shades of Bargast into melee while it's around 60% energy to kill it. Be sure to continually interrupt Deathly Roar, as a missed kick will wipe the raid. After killing one Shade, grip the other one in and also DPS that down. Remember, during all of this, Bargast will continue to cast Rip Soul on the tanks, and Hunstman will continue to cast Sinseeker on the raid. Another set of Shades of Bargast will spawn on the other side, so repeat crowd control on them, and repeat these mechanics. The raid will still have Pierce Soul spawn from Sinseekers, which healers will need to heal before they reach the boss. Other than that, this is probably the most difficult part of the fight mechanically, but the order of mechanics is static, so taking time to memorize what sequence everything happens will help a lot. Once Bargast dies, the final Gorgon will spawn. Hecutus is essentially unchanged from his heroic counterpart, but does a ton of raid-wide damage. His Sinseeker empowerment causes the target of Sinseeker to splash moderate damage in a 5-yard radius, so range should take a little extra care to be topped off for the soak. Hecutus has 2 main mechanics. He will cast Petrifying Howl on 3 random players in the raid, and those players will be rapidly slowed before being petrified and dropping a patch of stone shards at their location. Players targeted by this should simply run out of the raid as fast as they can and drop this near the edges of the room. Hecutus' other main ability is Crushing Stone. While Hecutus is stationary, he gains stack of Crushing Stone that increases damage by 25% but also reduces movement speed. Once he starts moving, he sheds these stacks, dealing massive raid-wide damage. Tanks need to take care to manage these stacks so that they are safe, but also not shed stacks at a rate that kills the entire raid. Our tanks let Hecutus get to roughly 10 stacks before shedding all of them by kiting the boss. We paired this with healer throughput cooldowns as well as personals to survive the damage, and we only had to clear his stacks twice before Hecutus died. We also saved Bloodlust for this phase for healers specifically. With Hecutus dead, we started sacrificing Sinseeker targets far away from the raid. At this point in the fight, it's easier to let those players die and spawn a ripped soul with 99% HP to make the healer's job easier. The DPS check is no longer a major factor in this fight, and having range soak and spawn additional ripped souls is an unnecessary risk. I'll let the remainder of the fight play out with comms, but if you have any questions, leave a comment down below. Be sure to subscribe and like the video to be notified of the rest of our Castle Nathria guides. Good luck!
So anyway, you can see it's spawned there on the right.
I thought that
so
would
as long
be
as they
curious.
heal those ripped souls, they should be able to do this. We saw the 2 people, they just sacrificed themselves, the Mistweaver and one of the Moonkins. And there we go. It looks like they're going to be downing the boss here. Looks like it's a world first Hunstman. Wow.
So,
well
second
done
world first
by
of the day.
BDGG.
Second world
Nice.
first
Well done.
indeed.